Now we'll move on to a bit more of your high school. So questions regarding your time at high school. So firstly, can you share any significant roles or any leadership roles that you did during high school, if there were any?
Sure. Yeah, I was involved in a few things within my school. We have what's called a class board, which is just like it's a pretty traditional student government organization. So for 1 year, I was VP. For the next 2 years, I was treasurer. And it was pretty basic stuff, just like managing funds for school events and dances. Um, and that was probably like my least significant extracurricular within school.
Mm.
But I mean, it was still valuable, and I learned a lot. And then next, I was managing editor of the school's newspaper. Again, like that's a pretty standard experience, but it's good that I was able to reach a pretty high leadership level, writing, editing articles. And actually, it was great because the app that we used in our school newspaper is Adobe InDesign. And I learned all the skills on InDesign that I actually needed to write my own book. Had I not been familiar with InDesign through newspaper, it would have taken me much longer to learn the program to write the book. Um, and then, so I did those two. And then by far, what I found to be the most important extracurricular for me within school was this contest called forensics. Um, it's it's similar to speech and debate. Have you heard of forensics? I
Uh,
wouldn't be surprised if you haven't heard of it.
yeah, I haven't heard of it. Could you explain more about what it is?
Sure. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different categories from like poetry to prose where you like basically perform to sales, which is what I and in sales you pick a product, you prepare ahead of time, and you have 8 minutes to basically sell your product to the judges in front of you, and you're competing against a bunch of different kids from different schools who have done the exact same thing as you. They've picked a product. The general structure is you tell them about the product. One of the key components is going through competition. Everyone pretty much has the same structure for the presentations. It's just whose visuals look the best and who can speak the best. So both years that I did it, I was actually state champion, and that was huge. Like being able to like there's actually no national championship for it. So I technically reached the highest level of forensics. And that's why I think that it was my most influential in school activity. Just kind of being able to reach the top of it both years was great. And yeah, I also, I genuinely had a lot of fun doing it. Presenting to the judges was always great. Building your visuals, I was able to use my creativity to do that. So those are like my three main in-school activities. But I would say that the bulk of what I did was out of school, and it's oftentimes the stuff you do out of school that can set you apart because a lot of the in-school stuff is very, very similar. And unless like you win a bunch of awards with your in-school stuff, it can all kind of look the same. So that's my advice.
Right. It's amazing how you got a state championship. Congrats on that. That's really, really big.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
quite nice. So is this, I want to ask a bit of off-topic question. Is this forensics somewhat similar to Shark Tank? Does it resemble it in any way?
Yes, it totally does. It's
Wow.
very, very similar. So that's a good question. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I see. I see. Okay, so that's another opportunity for high school students nowadays to get involved in forensics.
Yep.
Really cool. Okay, and as you mentioned, you were part of your school magazine, you were head boy, you were treasurer, VP, and this state championship as well. How do you think these experiences during high school, which is usually where students are usually growing and still learning about themselves, how do you think it prepared you for your university life?
So it's kind of hard because, I technically haven't touched down at university yet. I
Oh,
leave in about a month, but I do still have like a good idea. Number one, when you get to college, the clubs that you join are very important. So being able to figure out your own interests and figure out what clubs you want to join, and also like learning how to rise up and gain leadership in those clubs. If you can do that in high school, then hopefully those skills transfer to college. And then with forensics specifically, speaking component of it is huge. Being able to clearly communicate your ideas, that's something that'll not only help me in college, but help me throughout my entire life.
I see, I see. So speaking skills, as you mentioned, again, really, really big important factor. And throughout all these activities that you've done, were there any challenges that you faced, or what was the biggest challenge that you faced? Since you've done quite a bit, especially the forensics state championship, I'm sure it must have been difficult at least getting started. How did you overcome any issues that you felt?
Okay, yeah. So actually, I have a great story for this that I like to tell.
So,
So after I won my first state championship in 10th grade,
mm,
there was a student, let's just call him, the gummy bear kid, because that was actually his product.
oh,
And he was so, so good. So I won the state championship in 10th grade, but then all the way throughout 11th grade, whatever competition this kid went to, he genuinely got first at every single competition.
wow.
And I became, kind of accustomed to reaching the top six. The top six is considered the final round,
Yeah.
but basically knowing I wasn't going to win first. And then at the very last competition before states, I actually didn't reach the top six. And like that night was terrible. I was like, man, if I can't even reach the top six, I might not be a finalist at states. But not reaching the top six was huge for me because had I reached the top six, I probably would have been complacent and said, okay, I'm going to be a finalist, but I'm not going to get first. This gummy bear kid is going to get first. But then there was about a month in between that last competition before states and then states itself. And in that month, I trained is maybe not the right word. I practiced so hard because I was really ticked off by the fact that I didn't even make finals. So when I went to states, I was gunning for first place. And I came in there as a completely different performer. Even the kids who I was performing against, they were like, dude, like you're presenting so differently. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm here to win. So I ended up getting first. Actually, the gummy bear kid got third. And then this other girl got second, but that was huge for me being able to turn that defeat and that failure into success. And that defeat was so necessary for me because had I made the top six, I probably would not have been a state championship or a state champion a month later.
Wow. So, any failure that you have to be able to overcome it and just come back stronger. That's quite
Yep.
an inspiring story. It's almost like something from Hollywood. It's
All right. Yeah.
quite
It was
nice to
great.
hear. So, from all these experiences from your high school, how does it shape your experience or what you want to do in university? What are your expectations for UPenn, and how do you plan to make the most of it?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say, if I were to summarize, it would be learning how to seize opportunities and seeking out those opportunities. Because I know at a school like Penn with so many resources, there's going to be plenty of club opportunities, research opportunities, internship opportunities. So because in high school, I've learned how to seek out those opportunities and then not just seek them out, but seize them and actually get them. I'm hoping that those skills will transfer to college. And then kind of another thing is in my experiences, I've not only learned more about what I do want to do, but also what I don't want to do. And I think that's really important. For example, with like internships, personally, I've enjoyed the internships that I've done, but I'll choose an example of my dad. He always thought he was going to be a lawyer, but then he did a few summers at a law firm and absolutely hated it. And that's okay because oftentimes you'll find with the first few things that you try, maybe you don't like them. But honestly, that's just as helpful as if you did like them because then you can X them out and say, okay, I know I don't want to do that. Now let's figure out what I do want to do.
Right, right. Okay. So it's pretty important as well to, as you said, seek every and seize every opportunity that you get. Try out as many things as possible so you can, narrow your passions down. You can narrow down your interests so you can make an effort in a specific